Peace, fam. I have a real quick question, but I need to ask this question to pastors, priests, rabbis, ministers, mujaddits, messiahs, mahdis. I'm curious, and it's not a matter of being argumentative. I'm just, I had a conversation with somebody near and dear to me today, and that individual, the topic of witchcraft always comes up, and it always comes up in a very negative way, because somebody is always doing something or working some kind of something. That's neither here nor there, but it prompted me to ask a question. Consider this. Somebody got together and thought that it was a good idea and followed through on that idea to kidnap 100 million people from another continent. 96 million of them dying in the Middle Passage, bringing 4 million here. If we're gonna go with the transatlantic slave trade theory, or if we're gonna go in that direction, that explains why or how black people got here. We're seeing other information now, but let's go with that. So a group of people kidnaps 100 million people, 96 million die in the Middle Passage, 4 million are brought to the hells of North America, robbed of their name, their language, their identity, killed if they tried to practice their spiritual systems or invoke the name of their God. They had their names changed because many and most of our names were directly connected and tied to the God we serve, right? Raped, lynched, tortured, enslaved, brutalized, and the lynchings go on to this day. Lynchings have always been a public spectacle. And the officer kneeling down on George Floyd's neck was a public spectacle. Malcolm X being killed in the Audubon room, Dr. King being killed on a balcony, their bodies being exposed for the whole world to see. It was a lynching, always. And so, on a side note, I have a dictionary, Webster's International Dictionary from 1968. And when you look up the word crucified, it said extreme mental torture. And then the example sentence that they used to give you an understanding on how to apply the particular word was the daily crucifixion of the Negro in our midst, right? So, okay, so these people did this to our people. And along with that, after stripping us from our spiritual systems and practices and the identity and knowledge of our God and ourselves, they impose upon us a new spiritual practice. See, Give Me That Old Time Religion was not a song that just came out in the 2000s. That job was being sang on the plantations. And if the quote unquote slaves were asking for that old time religion when a new religion had been imposed upon them, what were they asking for? Right? So I'm just trying to figure out, how did the people that enslaved another people brought them to this land to work from can't see to can't see, from birth to death. How did they get the religion thing right? How did they get the spiritual thing right? How did this happen? And I'm equal opportunity across the board, because to this day, the Arab has done no less to the black man of Africa, the black man of the world, than what the European has done. So Islam can catch it as well. I'm trying to figure this out. How did the Arab get it right? How did our spiritual systems become pagan, become evil, become barbaric, become all of these different things? How did we get here? I need an answer. My soul is vexed. I'm trying to figure out, how did they get it right? How we embrace Christianity and Islam and the things that the European or the Euro-Arab imposed on us. We got black folks, and I was one of them for years, almost 2 decades, touting that I was Hebrew Israelite, right? Because the scriptures line up. You know, Genesis 15:13 says that know of a surety that the seed of Abraham would go into a strange land and serve a strange people, and they will afflict them for 400 years, right? I get that. So we see ourselves. We could walk through Deuteronomy and 53 curses and Deuteronomy from Deuteronomy chapter 68 from verse 15 all the way to all the way to 68. So what's it, Deuteronomy? I'm sorry, my emotions are catching me. I'll find it. Deuteronomy is, yeah, I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna put it in the footnotes. You all know. I think it's 19. We're gonna get it. Because I normally can rattle it right off, but my mind is rattled right now trying to figure out this question. How are we so wrong? Yet we can't seem to get off and under the oppressive thumb of our opposition, regardless of where we are on the planet. But when we called on the spiritual systems that we came to this hemisphere with, which was in Haiti, we seem to have been able to kick back the colonialism and the oppression and run them off. Of course, Haiti has been catching it ever since. They never forgot that, but I don't know if that has a lot to do with somehow their the European religiosity ended up prevailing in the end, or is it because our brothers and sisters there acquiesced and began to lean on and call on Catholicism? You know, therefore we handed over our power. It seems like everywhere we hand over our power. You know, the Arab came into Africa with a Quran and walked out with the deeds to all of the properties. You know, because we forfeit our power. When do we get that back? You know, I think about Stevie Wonder's song, Pastime Paradise. You know, we spend most of our time living in the pastime paradise. We descended from kings and queens. That sounds great. But when is the return to rulership? When do we get that popping? You know, when do our belief systems show and prove in all of its splendor, glory, and magnificence that, you know, the application of this sits us on high? When does that happen? The pandemic happened, the mosque was closed like everybody else was closed. The church was closed like everybody else was closed. The masjid was closed like every other institution was closed. What separates us, what puts us on high? You know, this is just Zarakia trying to, you know, Zarakia being Zarakia. The reason why invitations to cookouts and different things get lost in the mail, because, you know, Zarakia is being Zarakia. But I mean, you know, this is that time. Playtime is over. This is that time. We got to ask those hard questions, because I can't figure this. Whatever we have been doing, one of the most memorable quotes from Ben Ami that I have locked in the dome is, you know, global crisis is the end result of our applied knowledge. No matter what realm of knowledge you have, no matter what belief system you embrace, the world's predicament is the end result of that. Your predicament is the end result of that. You know, the application of all of our knowledge. When does that new thing come? When do we get to go back to the future and be those kings and queens again? I'm just trying to figure this out. And oftentimes, whenever I ascribe to a belief system, and in the back of my mind, I knew that it was dripping with Euro fingerprints, right? My articulate justification was, well, listen, we created everything. So in order for them to establish dominance and maintain it for so long, had to be because they took our systems and remixed it. And because the jewel of truth is still there, it gives them the power over us, right? That's my pacifying thesis, my position on, you know, so that I can sleep at night belonging to something that doesn't sit right in my soul. You know, like, yo, this is the truth. So what? The European had it and he took it, but he took it because it's a power system, and all he did was put his name on it. And I had to think about that, because there are quite a few, well, there are several artists that are real good, real good in revising, remixing, and redoing somebody else's song. And sometimes it's better than the original, or it gives the original a sure enough run for its money. Anything Luther Vandross has done, any remake, 9 times out of 10 is better than the original. 9 times out of 10. That 10th one was when he redid Stevie Wonder's song, Creepin'. Man, he did such a magnificent job with Creepin', to the extent that when I finally heard Stevie's, I thought Stevie had remade Luther's song. You know, I didn't realize Luther remade Stevie's, because I can rock with both of them. They sound different, yet they both sound so good, right? But this ain't that. Aretha Franklin redid Otis Redding's song Respect. And even Otis said, oh no, that ain't my song no more. That's Aretha's song. You know, because she put her foot in it. She put her soul in it. So it's a remix. It's a remake. It's not the original, but it's good. And it still satisfies your soul, right? But now, my favorite of all time, right beside Stevie Wonder, is Rakim Allah. Everybody knows. If you know me, you know Rakim is #1 with a bullet, right? So he does this song called Eric B is President, or Eric B for President. And in the chorus line, make 'em crack. I mean, yeah, make 'em clap to this. Make 'em clap to this, right? Love the song. Came through the door, said it before. Never let the mic magnetize me no more, but it's biting me, fighting me, inviting me to rhyme. Anyway. But I forgot what year, somewhere in the late 90s, Master P comes along and he does his own version of the song, and he changes make 'em clap to this to making crack to this. And as my man, Divine Mathematics, peace to the God, you know, he said, as far as I'm concerned, that's sacrilegious. You know, because Rakim's the God MC, you know, and Rakim injects a high level of spirituality and empowerment in every single thing that he does. You know, as he said himself, everything was written in the code so it could coincide, you know, everything. So Master P comes along with another version, and it's very harmful and disruptive. It's the antithesis of Rakim's thesis, right? So this is what I'm seeing. If we are the original man, if we originated Islam, and now we're embracing the remake, and that embracing of the remake has kept us on the bottom of civilization. If we are the original man and we originated Christianity, and we're embracing the remake, and that remake has not allowed us to rise back to the top, where we could say not only did we come from kings and queens, we kings and queens now. They're not ruling us now. We govern our lives, our social systems. We set law and policy. We have our own constitution. We dictate our fate and our existence upon this planet. We the gods. We're not bobbing our heads to the Luther Vandross remake where the soul and spirit is still in it. We're bobbing our heads to the Master P remake of Eric B for president, or Eric B is president. And that's bothering. Very, very unsettling to me. And you know, maybe there's an answer. Maybe somebody can articulate it. I'm not impressed with any answers I heard thus far. But maybe we can come together as intelligent men, intelligent women, great minds and thinkers. Not to say my mind is all that great, but I'd like to at least be a fly on the wall of that meeting. Y'all can, but pastors, priests, ministers, imams, holler. Let's talk. It's not even a debate. Your little brother just might be missing it. I'm missing something. I mean, this my offer. This thing that we've gone through. Even Encyclopedia Britannica said that the American slave system was the most peculiar in all of world's history. Encyclopedia Britannica said that about 40 years ago. You know, I mean, I remember debating or going back and forth with a European group in Boston called the 12 Tribes. And I liked the model of their organization, but it was based on a racist premise. However, unfortunately, that we were products of curses, and of a curse, and we were meant to be subjugated to them for eternity. That's just our lot in life. Because Noah's son laughed at Noah's nakedness, and that meant that, oh man, I mean, how happy as a European, how happy do you have to be? Man, how happy must you be knowing that happened? I'm so glad that Noah's son laughed at his nakedness, because now I get my cotton picked, my tobacco grown, my fruits and my crops, harvested forever. Because these people will always be underneath my foot because this man laughed at his father's nakedness. Y'all got to be so happy that shit happened. This is Rakia being extremely sarcastic at this point, but my whole point in arguing with the 12 tribes was when he told me, the local leader told me that, the relationship between the slave and the slave master was somewhat harmonious, that everybody understood their roles and their places. And he said the slavery experience had been blown out of proportion. And I told him, frankly, I could tell by the way you are forming your words and the construction of your sentences that you have no idea what you're talking about. Because this here experience in America is the only experience that, to my knowledge, that cannot be over-exaggerated. You can't make up. The black man's mind is incapable of exaggerating the things that were actually done to us. It had never entered our mind or consciousness to take corkscrews and screw them into people's bodies and pull them out just to see their organs curl on their way out. It never entered our consciousness, not the furthest or deepest depths and regions of our minds, to cut the belly of a pregnant woman open and pull out the fetus and crush the skull under the heel of your boot, only to instill fear in those that have to witness that. That kind of stuff doesn't even enter the mind of a sane person, not only a black person, a sane human being. So to say that it's been blown out of proportion, you can't. You can't blow it out of proportion because we can't even explore the depths of everything that happened. So I did, and it's the same now. Our brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa right now, in Libya and in Liberia, and places where the Arab has made his presence, right now they're being enslaved. Dr. John Henry Clarke said in Zanzibar, Africa, there are no less than 100,000 sycamore trees. I believe it was a sycamore tree, but there were no less than 100,000 trees, and at the base, under the root of every one of those trees, was an African skull. And they were put there by the Arab who accused the African of looking at an Arab woman. So they were beheaded and their skull was buried, and a sycamore tree was planted over top of his skull. So now we embrace Islam. You know, how did that kind of mind get the knowledge of God right? How did that kind of mind produce a truth that if we embrace it, we be all right with God? How did the mind of someone who used corkscrews and stomped babies after cutting them out of women's stomachs, crushing skulls with the boots of your heel, how did you get the God thing right? This is what I'm trying to figure out. If anybody got an answer, you know, Muslim, Christian, Hebrew, Israelite, get at me. If you got an answer, if you can make this make sense beyond your belief system, make that make sense to me. But I'm aware of intellectual dishonesty, and we got to be honest today. We got to go beyond our intellectual dishonesty. And what is that? It's a phrase that I think that I coined. Maybe somebody implanted it in my head subconsciously or whatever. I picked it up somewhere, but for years and years I've been talking about this intellectual dishonesty. So what it is when you fall in love emotionally with a belief system before intellectually, and because you've fallen in love with it, I'll use my father as an example, based on what he put in his own book, so it's public knowledge. Strung out on drugs, going through this marriage thing, trying to relieve himself of physical life by self-medicating and with the intent to take his own life. And my grandfather on my mother's side find him unconscious, pick him up, take him to the hospital, and from there he was shipped off to his father, his brother, who had been embraced by the Nation of Islam. So my father finds himself now in the Nation of Islam, and boy, did he clean up, you know. So by the time I'm fully conscious and aware, my father goes from lieutenant to minister, you know, and he was even Minister Rahman Farrakhan, you know. But that was not an intellectual odyssey. That was an emotional odyssey. The nation saved his life. So it saved his life. So now that you're reading and learning and studying, when you go to the library, now that this institution saved your life, what aisle are you walking down? Are you walking down the aisle that fortifies everything you believe in? Or are you going to walk down that aisle and pick up books like Babylon and Timbuktu, or something from Dr. John Henrik Clarke or Dr. Yosef Ben Yachanan? Are you going to find books from Dr. Asa Hilliard, something that might challenge the very thing that you have fallen in love with because it saved your life. My grandmother, didn't finish school, illiterate, abandoned, with 5 children, trying to make her way, trying to take care of so many, and is introduced to the Jehovah's Witnesses. And nice old white lady teaches her how to read and gives her an appreciation and introduces her to a community that loves her, that helped her build her house on top of a closed down Kingdom Hall that she converted into a beauty salon, and they built her house for free. All she had to do was supply the materials. You gonna read something that's gonna challenge that belief system? No. So if you find something that does challenge it, you gonna accept it? Not if you're not intellectually honest. So how many of us believe what we believe? And if you're any observer, spectator, or participant of the quote-unquote conscious community, you see debates all the time hosted by Sa Neter, where Dr. Wesley Muhammad will bring a U-Haul full of books to support his position. Shaka Amos, whose position is 180 degrees away from Dr. Wesley's position, but he got a U-Haul too. Both of them got the same amount of books proving emphatically that their point is the right point. What's the tiebreaker? Belief system. If Shaka Amos believes with all of his heart that we came from Kemet, it really didn't have nothing to do with those books in the U-Haul. He already believed that. Dr. Wesley Muhammad got his PhD, but he already believed in the thing that he gave his dissertation on. The evidence, the proof. The belief system dictated the footsteps when you went into the library. And I'm not, that's my brother. I love Dr. Wesley. I haven't met him yet, but I'm looking forward to it. He's one of my superheroes. Please. Shaka Amos, one of my superheroes. Love to meet with these brothers, and just be able to touch the hem of their garments. I mean, and that goes for everybody. I'm not knocking where my grandmother was, the belief system that she embraced. But I know when it comes to this thing about why we have not ascended to rulership, returned to rulership. And I know that many of our belief systems inside of them have a justification for why we are here, how we got here, why we're here. And that seems to be the same understanding that the European has. And I just think that right now, we got to go another way. What way that is, I ain't sure. But I'm sure that the global crisis is the end result of our applied knowledge. I could go on. I ain't sure my battery or my memory is going to be able to sustain as much of what I have to talk about. So I'll leave it there and look forward to a wholesome conversation with all who would like to participate. Maybe we could turn this into a Zoom thing. Now that restrictions seem to be lifting and relaxing a little, we might be able to gather as family and converse. No more debates. I'm tired of that. I done murdered too many relationships and watched too many relationships getting murdered, you know, over belief systems and whatnot. And everybody that are in their belief systems, they had their U-Haul trucks to prove why they're there now. But, you know, many and most did not become so studious and so intellectual, you know, until they were first emotionally in love with that. I think I'm kind of a rare breed that it's not the emotionalism that gets me anymore, you know. All right, fam. I love you for the sake of truth, for the sake of freedom, and for the sake of our return to rulership. Peace.